40 years after Chicago burned, a newspaperman named Michael Ahern took credit for the most famous lie in American history. He told readers of the Chicago Tribune that he and two colleagues had invented it. The cow, the lantern, all of it. They had needed something for the morning edition, and there was a poor Irish woman with a barn. His two colleagues were dead by the time he named them. And afterwards, a man who had worked alongside him said something that nobody has ever been able to disprove, that he had written Ahern's confession himself. 3 men in a newsroom took credit for the lie. Whether any of them told it, that is a different question. This is what they saw happen. Here is what makes all of it unnecessary. Catherine O'Leary had already told the truth, under oath. In November of 1971, 6 weeks after the fire, to 3 commissioners of the Board of Police and Fire. They asked her what she knew. She said she was in bed. Her husband and 5 children were in bed. The first she knew of it, her husband ran back into the bedroom and said 5 words. "Kate, the barn is afire." That transcript exists. It was written out by hand and filed, and it sat there. Meanwhile, the cow was printed and reprinted. It was cartooned in newspapers across the country. It was set to music, an actual song, with a verse about a lantern in a shed. It was painted by Norman Rockwell. It was made into a Hollywood film that won an Academy Award. In 1960, the city of Chicago entered a float in the Rose Parade featuring her barn, a lantern, simulated fire, and a cow made of carnations. The theme that year was Tall Tales and True. Every one of those things happened while a sworn transcript saying otherwise sat in a drawer in the city she supposedly burned down. She was formally cleared in 1997, 126 years later. She was in her early 40s, an Irish immigrant, and by every account sober and hardworking. She kept 5 cows and a horse behind the cottage at 137 DeKoven Street and sold milk to her neighbors before dawn. She owned the building and rented the front 2 rooms to the McLaughlins. On the evening of Sunday, the 8th of October, 1871, the McLaughlins were having a party. Mrs. McLaughlin's husband was a fiddler. Catherine, in bed on the other side of a shared wall, could hear the music. She went to sleep anyway. She had to be up at 5. Outside that bedroom, Chicago was 334,000 people built almost entirely of wood. The houses, 55 miles of pine block street, 600 miles of raised timber sidewalk with dry air under every plank. Between the 4th of July and the 9th of October, 1 inch of rain fell. And the fire department had spent Saturday night and most of Sunday on a planing mill fire that burned 4 blocks. 18 hours of steady work. When Catherine O'Leary went to bed, the men who were supposed to save her city had been awake for the better part of 2 days. At around 20 past 9, a drayman named Daniel Sullivan, sitting on the sidewalk opposite, saw flame coming out of the barn. Catherine woke to shouting and ran out. She told the board the whole barn was already alight, and that she got so frightened she could not afterwards say what happened or how long anything took. 100 feet above the middle of the city, in the cupola of the courthouse, there was one man whose entire job was to look at Chicago, Matthias Schaffer. He saw the glow and called down the location. At 9:30, the alarm office struck box 342 at Canalport Avenue and Halsted Street. The board's own report calls that box a point in the direction of the fire, but a mile beyond it. The same report records something worse. No street alarm box ever signaled the central office at all. Not one. So the engines rolled out on time, at speed, exactly as designed, and rolled to empty ground a mile past a burning barn. Neighbors testified it was 10 to 15 minutes before anything arrived. By then, 3 to 5 buildings were gone, in a street where, as Catherine O'Leary told the board, there were wood shavings stored in every house. The wind came from the southwest and became a gale. The heat column pulled air in from all sides, and the inrushing air began to rotate. Men fighting it described whirling columns of flame lifting roofs off buildings and setting them down, burning streets away. Brands traveled a mile. Schaffer's own post, the courthouse cupola, had to put out fires landing on its balcony twice, carried a mile from the west side. At about 2 in the morning, the courthouse itself went, and the 5.5-ton bell rang until the floor beneath it burned away and it fell. Everyone assumed the river would stop it, but the south branch was lined with lumber yards and coal yards, with barges tied along it and bridges across it, and the fire walked over the water on the things people had built on top of it. They tried blowing up buildings ahead of the flames. The report says it made no difference at all. Then it reached the waterworks. The pumping station on which the whole city depended had a wooden roof and no means of getting water onto its own roof. Every hydrant in Chicago went dead. 3 miles out in Lake Michigan, the keeper of the water crib found the sky above him full of burning brands and testified that he and his wife worked from 11:30 until morning to stop the crib's wooden roof catching. The fire was setting fires on the lake, 2,150 acres, between 17 and 18,000 buildings, 100,000 people homeless in October. The board estimated about 200 dead. The coroner recovered 117 bodies. Modern estimates run to 300. All of those numbers are soft because a fire that hot does not always leave anything to count. And the cottage at 137 DeKoven Street survived. Neighbors set 2 wash tubs at the hydrants and kept the little house wet all night while the barn behind it and the city beyond it burned. "We had plenty of water," she told the board, "until the fire was done." She had water. Chicago did not. So who invented the cow? The honest answer is that we do not know, and the reason we do not know is that the confession has never been solid. Ahern's date moves. The Chicago History Museum puts his boast at the 40th anniversary, 1911. Other accounts say 1893. At least one places it at the 50th in 1921 and quotes it at length. 3 dates for the single most repeated fact about this fire. His collaborators were dead when he named them. He had not worked at the Tribune in 1871. He was at the Chicago Republican. Other men have claimed the invention over the years. And after his revelation ran, a longtime colleague said that he had ghost-written it under Ahern's byline, adding of Ahern himself. The booze got him many years ago. That is what stands between Catherine O'Leary and her name. A boast about dead men, printed on an anniversary, possibly written by somebody else. Meanwhile, the sworn transcript had been sitting in the record since 1871. She never enjoyed any of it. She turned down promoters who offered her money to appear in public. She moved house. Every October, reporters came looking, and she ignored them or chased them off, and they went away and wrote her up as the drunk, dirty immigrant they had wanted in the first place. A boy who went poking through the ruins of her barn remembered her afterwards. Mrs. O'Leary came out with a broomstick in her hand and drove us away. Patrick died in September of 1894. Catherine died the following 4th of July. 3 men took credit for the lie. Nobody has ever been able to prove which of them told it, or whether any of them did, and in the end, it did not matter who invented her. It only mattered that somebody needed to.